Dr. Adam Pierce sat at his desk in the quiet corner of the Dawnspire's medbay, a cup of cold coffee by his side. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air as it sailed through the depths of space. Adam had been a medic for over a decade, working on countless missions. But even after all these years, he knew that space always had the power to throw the unexpected his way. Today, though, something felt different. The communication panel in front of him suddenly lit up with a sharp beep, interrupting his thoughts. Adam's fingers froze mid-motion as he glanced at the screen. It was a distress signal, not from the usual crew or nearby ships, but from a spaceport he had never heard of. The voice on the other end crackled with urgency. "Dr. Pierce," the voice said, slightly distorted but clearly human. "We have an emergency. An Eltharian diplomat. She's badly hurt. We need your help now." Adam leaned forward, his heart rate picking up. The Eltharians were a rare species, highly advanced, but also incredibly private. Diplomatic relations between humans and Eltharians had only recently begun, and even then, only a few trusted human medics had interacted with their kind. "What happened?" Adam asked, trying to keep his voice calm despite the mounting pressure. There was a pause, and then the voice responded in a hurried whisper. "It's hard to explain. She's bleeding in a way we don't understand. It's coming from a private area, and we can't stop it. Please, we need you." Adam's mind raced. Blood loss was always a threat, but he wasn't sure how it would apply to an Eltharian. They had different biology, different systems. How would he treat this kind of injury without proper training or understanding? He glanced over at the empty medbay, quiet, sterile, and full of tools he would need, but none of them made the situation any easier. "Send me the coordinates," Adam said quickly. "I'm on my way." He grabbed his medkit, strapped it to his side, and left his office in a hurry. The Dawnspire wasn't far from the spaceport, but even a few minutes could make a difference in a life-or-death situation. He hit the comm panel again, this time for the ship's captain. "Captain Delmar, I need to make a detour. Emergency medical situation." "Understood, Dr. Pierce. I'll adjust the course," came the captain's voice. The ship's engines shifted as the Dawnspire changed course, heading for the small, bustling spaceport. Adam made his way through the ship, the hallways echoing with his hurried footsteps. He passed the mess hall, the sleeping quarters, and the training rooms, all quiet, all far from the urgency of his current task. As the ship descended into the atmosphere of the spaceport, Adam couldn't help but wonder about the alien he was about to treat. Eltharians were unlike any species humans had encountered. They were tall, with skin that shimmered faintly under the right light, and eyes that glowed with an inner intelligence. Their physiology was largely a mystery, as very few humans had ever been in close contact with them. When the Dawnspire touched down, Adam was already prepared, his hand steady despite the gravity of the situation. The airlock opened with a hiss, and he was greeted by two men in dark uniforms, their faces pale with worry. "Dr. Pierce, thank you for coming," one of them said. He looked no older than 25, his face marked with stress. "No time for thanks," Adam replied, checking his equipment. "Where is she?" The second man stepped forward and motioned for Adam to follow. They led him through the narrow corridors of the spaceport to a small, sterile medical room. Inside, a figure lay on a stretcher, her long, silvery hair spread out against the white sheets. She looked like she could have been one of the statues in the art galleries back on Earth, graceful and delicate. But this time, she wasn't posed in a museum. She was in desperate need of help. Lyanna, the Eltharian diplomat, was unconscious, her pale skin nearly glowing in the harsh light. Her body was covered by a loose cloth, but Adam's attention was immediately drawn to the site of the injury. There was a dark, pulsing wound near her side, and blood seeped from it in irregular patterns, unlike anything Adam had ever seen. His heart skipped a beat. This was more than just an injury. There was something unusual about the way the blood flowed, almost as if it was reacting to the air around her. "Get the translator," Adam ordered quickly. "I need to know what happened." One of the men rushed to a corner and activated a small device that flickered to life, providing an instant translation. The man spoke again, but this time, his words were clear in Adam's ear. "The wound, it came from an accident. She was attacked, but it wasn't a typical injury. This bleeding, it's something we've never seen before. It's coming from an area of her anatomy that's sacred in our culture," the man explained. Adam nodded grimly. "I understand. But I need to stop this bleeding, or she won't make it. Do you have any medical supplies from her species? We don't know what's safe for her. We're not equipped for this. Then I'll have to figure it out myself." Adam moved to the table and began assessing her condition more closely. He felt the weight of the moment settle on him, but he pushed it aside. There was no room for doubt now. He would save her. He had to. Adam took a deep breath as he prepared to begin. The medical bay was quiet, too quiet for the intensity of the situation. Lyanna, the Eltharian diplomat, lay unconscious before him. Her pale skin shimmered in the harsh white light, and her long silver hair cascaded over the edge of the stretcher like a stream of liquid moonlight. Despite her beauty, there was no time to admire her appearance. Only the sound of her labored breathing filled the room as Adam assessed the gravity of the injury. He needed to stop the bleeding, but this was no ordinary wound. Adam had seen all kinds of injuries in his years as a medic, but this was something entirely different. The blood pooling from her side seemed almost alive. It shimmered in strange patterns, pulsing and shifting, as if it was reacting to something beyond the physical injury. His fingers hovered over his med kit, but Adam hesitated. How could he treat a wound when he didn't even understand the physiology of the species? He glanced at the translator device in the corner, its blinking lights indicating it was ready for communication. The translator buzzed, and the voice of one of the spaceport workers filled the room. "We don't know much about Eltharian biology, Dr. Pierce," the man said. "But her people told us this is a sacred part of their body. We're afraid to do anything that might dishonor her." Adam understood. This was not just a medical emergency, it was a cultural one as well. To harm this area of an Eltharian's body, even by accident, could cause irreparable damage to diplomatic relations. He couldn't afford to make a mistake. "I understand the stakes," Adam replied, glancing back at Lyanna. "But I need to save her life. There's no time to wait." The worker nodded, but his eyes were filled with worry. Adam took another step closer to Lyanna, his mind racing through every possibility. He would have to use a gentle hand, approach this with care, but also act swiftly. There was no manual for this kind of injury. He was truly on his own. First, Adam ran his gloved fingers lightly over the wound. It was jagged, the edges darkened and swollen. The blood flowed strangely, almost in waves, like it was part of a larger, unseen system. He couldn't help but wonder if this wasn't just an external injury, but something deeper, a problem with her circulatory system, or something even more complicated. He knew he had to be careful, so he began by scanning the area with a portable diagnostic device. The machine hummed, its light flashing green and blue as it scanned Lyanna's body for any signs of internal damage. But nothing. There was no immediate sign of broken bones or organ damage, yet the blood continued to pulse erratically. Adam pressed a few buttons on the diagnostic tool, trying to get more detailed data. It was frustrating. The machine wasn't reading the blood as it would for a human. Instead of the familiar red glow of oxygen-rich blood, Lyanna's blood was emitting strange light patterns, and the readings kept fluctuating, making it harder for Adam to get a clear understanding of the situation. "This is not just a physical wound," Adam muttered under his breath. "It's something more." He took a step back and placed a hand on his chin, thinking. The spaceport workers watched him with wide eyes, unsure what to do next. Lyanna's breathing was shallow, her body still, but the faint pulsing of her blood kept drawing Adam's attention. He needed more information. "Can you get me some samples from her people?" Adam asked the worker. Anything that might help me understand her biology better. The worker nodded quickly and rushed out of the room. Adam returned his focus to Lyanna, trying not to let the growing sense of urgency distract him. He wasn't sure how much time they had, but the longer the bleeding continued, the more risk she faced. While he waited, Adam carefully examined her body. Eltharians had a smooth, almost translucent skin, and the features of their anatomy were strikingly different from humans. Their musculature was thinner, and their joints were more flexible, as if they were built for graceful, fluid movement rather than strength. Yet despite their delicate appearance, Eltharians were known to be incredibly resilient, able to survive harsh environments and extreme conditions. But this was something else entirely. There was no telling if her body's defenses were strong enough to fight off whatever was happening. The door to the room opened, and the worker returned, holding a small vial in his hand. "This is what we have," he said. "It's from one of the Eltharian medics. It's a serum meant to stabilize their blood, but we don't know if it will work on her." Adam took the vial, examining it carefully. The liquid inside shimmered like liquid light, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The Eltharians had developed advanced medical treatments, but would this serum actually help? "I'll try it," Adam decided, "but I'm not sure what it will do. Prepare yourself for the worst." He carefully injected the serum into the bloodstream near the wound, watching for any changes. For a long moment, nothing happened. But then, slowly, the pulsating blood began to calm, its erratic pattern stabilizing into a more normal flow. Adam let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It wasn't a cure, but it was a start. The blood stopped flowing as aggressively, and Lyanna's breathing steadied. The worker let out a soft sigh of relief, but Adam wasn't ready to relax just yet. He had to stay vigilant. The real test would come when Lyanna regained consciousness. But for now, at least they had bought her some time. Adam wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes fixed on Lyanna, as she lay still on the stretcher. The serum had stabilized her condition for the moment, but that didn't mean she was out of danger. There was still so much they didn't understand about her physiology, and more importantly, about the cultural importance of the injury she had sustained. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the medical equipment. Adam stood by Lyanna's side, his hand still shaking slightly from the pressure of the situation. Her breathing was steady now, her body no longer shaking with the violent pulses of blood that had threatened to overwhelm her. But he couldn't help feeling a sense of unease. He had treated countless species before, but none like this. One of the workers, the same one who had handed Adam the serum, stepped forward, his face drawn with concern. "She's stabilized for now," the worker said quietly. "But, Dr. Pierce, what you've done, injecting the serum, it's something we're not supposed to do." Adam raised an eyebrow, his thoughts racing. "What do you mean? The serum was meant for her people, right?" The worker nodded but hesitated. "Yes, but Eltharians, they are very protective of certain aspects of their biology. Some things are considered sacred. That wound, it's more than just a physical injury. It's an area that symbolizes deep personal honor. By treating it the way you have, you may have disrespected her." Adam's stomach dropped as he processed the words. He had no intention of disrespecting Lyanna or her people, but the urgency of the situation had clouded his judgment. In his mind, saving her life had been the only priority. "I didn't know," Adam said, his voice quiet but firm. "I only did what I thought was necessary to keep her alive." The worker nodded, but there was still a hint of worry in his eyes. "I understand. But you need to know, even though she's unconscious, Lyanna may have a different reaction when she wakes up. She may feel dishonored by the treatment." Adam looked down at Lyanna, his heart heavy with the weight of what the worker had said. He had saved her life, but at what cost? He had no way of knowing how the Eltharians would view his actions. A few moments passed in silence as Adam considered his next move. It was clear that he needed to understand more about Altharian culture if he was going to treat them without unintentionally crossing any boundaries. He could still hear the workers' words echoing in his mind. Certain aspects of their biology are sacred. He had to respect that. But how could he fix something he didn't fully understand? Lyanna stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering. Adam quickly stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Her silver hair glistened under the light, and her eyes slowly opened, revealing the faint glow that was characteristic of Altharian sight. She blinked, disoriented, before focusing on him. "You're awake," Adam said softly, trying to sound calm even though his mind was racing. Lyanna's gaze drifted to the medical equipment around her and then to the site of the wound. Her expression flickered between confusion and concern as she realized something had been done to her. She tried to sit up, but a wave of weakness overcame her, and she slumped back into the bed, eyes wide with alarm. What did you do to me?" she asked, her voice strained but clear. The translator device on the wall repeated her words in Adam's ear. Adam swallowed hard. He had no idea how to explain himself. Lyanna, you were hurt. You were bleeding, and I needed to stop it. I didn't know what else to do." She shook her head slightly, her gaze moving to the blood-stained bandages that covered her side. You didn't have permission," she whispered, her voice barely audible. There was a sadness in her tone that made Adam's heart ache. "That part of my body is sacred. You didn't have the right." Adam felt his stomach churn. He hadn't known, but now it was clear. He had done something that was not just a medical procedure to Lyanna. It was a violation of something far deeper, something tied to her identity. "I didn't know," Adam repeated, his voice earnest. "I never meant to disrespect you. I only wanted to save your life." Lyanna's eyes softened, and she closed them briefly as if trying to gather her thoughts. "I understand. Your actions were driven by a need to help," she said, her voice quieter now. "But you must understand, human medic, the honor of our people is bound to the integrity of our bodies. You treated a wound in a way that goes beyond healing. It is a wound on my soul, as much as my body." Adam felt a pang of guilt. He had acted quickly, but now the full weight of the situation was sinking in. He had helped her, but in the process, he might have damaged a cultural boundary that could be impossible to repair. "I'm sorry," Adam said quietly, his voice filled with regret. "If there's anything I can do to make it right, anything at all, I will." Lyanna looked at him, her gaze soft but serious. "You've already done enough," she said, her voice gaining strength. "You saved my life. But to heal the wound I now carry, it will take more than medicine." Adam nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what she meant. But he was willing to do whatever it took. He couldn't undo his mistake, but he could learn. He could listen. And most of all, he could try to respect her and her people in a way that he hadn't before. "I will make things right," Adam promised. "I swear it." Lyanna nodded slowly, her face still serious, but no longer filled with the anger that had been there moments before. There was something else in her eyes now, an understanding. As she drifted back into sleep, Adam sat beside her, his mind turning over everything he had learned in such a short time. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. There were more challenges to face, both medical and cultural. But he had to believe that there was a way forward. After all, saving lives was more than just fixing bodies. It was about understanding the hearts and souls of those you sought to help. The following days felt like a blur to Adam. He remained at the spaceport medical bay, keeping a close eye on Lyanna as she recovered. She had woken up a few times, her strength returning, but her eyes still held the sadness and confusion of someone who had suffered a deep personal injury. Adam's mind never stopped racing. Every moment, every decision felt critical. He had done something that was not only a medical procedure but a cultural offense. He had treated a sacred wound without understanding its importance, and now he needed to make it right. But how? The more Adam thought about it, the more the task seemed impossible. Lyanna had made it clear that the wound was more than just a physical injury. It was an affront to her dignity, her culture, her very being. The Eltharians were a proud species, and the integrity of their bodies was not just a matter of physical health, but of honor. Adam had crossed a line, whether he meant to or not. Adam stood in the corner of the room, his eyes focused on the sterile walls. The spaceport was busy, full of workers moving quickly to prepare ships for their next departures. But here, in this small room, the world felt smaller. He felt the weight of his actions bearing down on him. He had promised Lyanna that he would make things right, but so far, he had no idea how to keep that promise. How could he fix something so deeply rooted in her culture, something that involved far more than just healing her physical wound? Adam was lost in thought when the door to the medical room opened. One of the spaceport workers stepped inside, holding a data pad in his hands. "Dr. Pierce," the worker said, his voice calm but with a hint of urgency, "we've received a message from the Eltharian delegation." Adam's pulse quickened. The Eltharian delegation had been in contact with the spaceport, but it was unusual for them to reach out personally, unless the situation was serious. "From the delegation?" Adam asked, standing up straighter. "What do they want?" The worker held out the data pad. "It's from Lyanna's people. They're requesting a meeting with you." Adam hesitated. He knew that the Eltharians could be incredibly private, especially when it came to their sacred practices. This could be his opportunity to truly understand the cultural significance of what had happened and perhaps begin to repair the damage he had caused. "Set it up," Adam said, his voice firm. "I'll meet with them." The worker nodded and left the room, leaving Adam alone with his thoughts. He had no idea what kind of reception he would receive. The Eltharians valued their privacy, and their ways were not easily understood by outsiders. But if he was to heal the wound he had caused, he needed to understand them, to listen to them, and most importantly, to show them respect. A few hours later, Adam found himself in a small conference room inside the spaceport. The walls were adorned with intricate patterns that looked foreign to him, delicate symbols that glowed faintly in the low light. He had never seen anything like it before. He was the only human in the room, surrounded by members of the Eltharian delegation. There were 3 of them, all tall and graceful, their skin shimmering under the soft light. Their eyes glowed softly, the same pale blue as Lyanna's, but their presence was unlike anything Adam had ever felt. There was a quiet power about them, a calm authority that seemed to fill the room without a single word being spoken. One of them, a woman with long, silver hair and sharp, angular features, stepped forward. Her eyes studied Adam with intensity, as though she was looking deep into his soul. "You are the one who treated Lyanna," she said, her voice melodic yet firm. The translator device on the wall converted her words to English, but there was a richness to her tone that made Adam pause. "I am," Adam said, keeping his voice steady. I never meant to cause harm, only to help." The woman studied him for a long moment, her gaze unwavering. "You have saved her life." "That much is true," she said, "but you have also crossed a boundary. Our bodies are not mere vessels for life. They are sacred. The wound you treated, it was not just a physical injury. It is a mark of personal honor." Adam nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of what she was saying. "I didn't know. I acted in haste, and I regret it deeply. I only wanted to save her." The woman's expression softened slightly, but her eyes were still sharp. "We know you acted with good intentions, but intentions do not erase the dishonor that has been done." Adam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "How can I make this right?" he asked, his voice sincere. "I will do anything. I promise you I will." The woman seemed to consider this for a moment before nodding. "There is a way to repair the harm, but it is not easy. It will require both physical and spiritual healing. Your methods, though effective, are foreign to us. To truly heal the wound, you must understand our ways. our culture, our beliefs. Adam's heart skipped a beat. What do I need to do? The woman gestured to the others, who stepped forward, handing Adam a small object wrapped in cloth. When he unwrapped it, he found a delicate, crystal-like stone. It shimmered with a soft light that seemed to pulse with an inner rhythm. "This is a healing stone," she explained. "It holds the energy of our people. To begin the healing process, you must use it in the traditional way. Place it on her wound and meditate on what it means to respect and honor her life." Adam took the stone, feeling its warmth spread through his fingers. He had no idea what the process would entail, but he was willing to try. He had already made mistakes, but he wouldn't make any more. He would do whatever it took to right the wrong he had done. "Thank you," Adam said, his voice filled with determination. "I will do as you ask." Adam stood in the small medical room, the delicate crystal stone in his hand. It was warm to the touch, almost pulsing with an energy that he couldn't quite understand. The Eltharian delegation had given him specific instructions to place the stone on Lyanna's wound and meditate, focusing on the healing process, on honoring her life and the traditions of her people. Adam wasn't sure what kind of magic or science lay behind the stone, but if it was what Lyanna's people believed would heal her, then he would follow their guidance. Lyanna lay on the bed, her eyes closed in peaceful sleep. Though her body had been stabilized, Adam could see the strain in her face, the weight of the injury that went beyond physical pain. She had told him that the wound was not just an injury, but an attack on her honor. Adam knew that healing her would require more than just physical treatment. It would take an effort of understanding, patience, and respect. He took a deep breath. The air cooled in the sterile room. The faint hum of the medical machines was the only sound. He hadn't had much time to prepare himself for this moment, but now, it felt like the weight of the universe was on his shoulders. He was about to try something that was as much about faith as it was about science, and he hoped beyond hope that he could do it right. "Here goes," Adam whispered to himself as he gently lifted the stone and placed it over the center of Lyanna's wound. The moment the stone made contact with her skin, a faint glow spread outward, illuminating her side. Adam blinked, his heart pounding in his chest. The stone wasn't just glowing. It was almost alive, as if it was drawing energy from the air itself. He had never seen anything like this. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. But he focused on the task at hand, remembering the instructions from the Eltharian woman. "Focus," he reminded himself. "Focus on honoring her, on healing." He closed his eyes and took slow, deliberate breaths, trying to empty his mind of all the confusion and worry. He needed to connect, to understand what Lyanna's people held so dear. He thought about her words. "The wound is a mark of personal honor." He needed to understand the gravity of that statement, the sacredness of it. As Adam meditated, the air around him seemed to shift. It wasn't anything he could see or hear, but a change he could feel deep within himself. His thoughts became clearer, his connection to Lyanna's healing stronger. He imagined her people's respect for life, for the body, for the soul. He thought of her pain, not just physical but emotional, tied to the wound on her body. The stone seemed to draw the energy from him, from the space around them, and into the very wound on Lyanna's side. Minutes turned into hours as Adam remained still, focusing all his energy on the healing process. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he didn't dare open his eyes or break his concentration. The stone beneath his hands seemed to grow warmer, and the pulse of energy became stronger. Then, just as Adam was beginning to doubt himself, Lyanna's breathing began to change. Her body shifted, and her eyes fluttered open. She looked directly at Adam, and for a moment, there was only silence between them. The room was still, the energy in the air palpable. Lyanna's eyes were soft, yet full of an emotion Adam couldn't place. She reached up slowly, her hand brushing the stone still placed over her wound. "You've done it," she whispered, her voice quiet but full of gratitude. The healing has begun. Adam felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't complete yet, but it was enough to know that his efforts had worked, that he hadn't caused further harm. I didn't know what to expect, Adam admitted, his voice low. But I knew I had to try. I didn't want to just save your body. I wanted to honor your culture, too. Lyanna gave him a small, appreciative smile. You have shown respect, Dr. Pierce. That is what matters most to us. Adam felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but there was still much to be done. The Eltharian delegation had said this healing process would take time, and it wasn't just about the stone or the meditation. It would require patience, understanding, and a deep commitment to Lyanna's honor, her life, and her people's traditions. Is there anything else I can do? Adam asked, his voice earnest. Anything at all. Lyanna's gaze softened as she thought for a moment. The stone will do its work. But there is something you can give me, she said slowly. A promise. Adam raised an eyebrow, confused. A promise. Yes, Lyanna said, her voice calm but firm. A promise that you will continue to learn about our people, our ways, our culture. That you will not treat us as mere patients, but as equals, respecting our customs, understanding the depths of what we hold sacred. You have taken the first step, Dr. Pierce, but the journey is not over. If you wish to heal me fully, you must walk with us, not just as a medic, but as a fellow being who seeks to understand. Adam took in her words, the weight of them sinking into his chest. He had never imagined that healing someone's body could be so complex, so intertwined with culture and respect. But now, more than ever, he realized how important it was. I promise, Adam said, his voice firm and sincere. I will learn. I will listen. And I will do everything in my power to honor your people. Lyanna smiled softly, her eyes filled with a quiet appreciation. That is enough for now. Adam looked down at the stone once more. It was still glowing, its warmth spreading through the air. He had taken the first step toward healing, but the path ahead was long. He would need to learn, to adapt, and to grow. But as he looked at Lyanna, he knew one thing for certain. He was ready. Ready to walk that path together. The days after Lyanna's recovery felt like a turning point for Adam. Though her wound had begun to heal, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to the Eltharian culture than he had first realized. The promise he had made to her, to learn, to respect, to understand, still weighed heavily on his mind. Every moment with her, every interaction with the Eltharian delegation, felt like a new challenge. Adam had spent countless hours studying their ways, learning about their traditions and rituals. Some things were more straightforward, their deep connection to the environment, their peaceful way of life, and their complex belief system. But others, like the sacredness of their bodies and the importance of personal honor, were harder to grasp. He wasn't sure if he would ever fully understand it, but he was determined to try. Lyanna had begun to regain her strength, and her demeanor had softened over the past few days. There was still an underlying tension when she looked at him, but it wasn't the anger or distrust he had seen before. Now there was a quiet curiosity in her eyes. She was watching him, waiting to see if he would live up to the promise he had made. One afternoon, Adam found himself sitting across from Lyanna in a small garden near the spaceport. The Eltharian delegation had set aside the space as a peaceful retreat, a place for rest and reflection. The garden was unlike anything Adam had seen before. The plants were glowing softly, their petals shimmering with an ethereal light, and the air was thick with the scent of alien flowers that seemed to change with every breath. It was a place of calm, a place where Adam could let his thoughts settle. Lyanna sat beside him, her legs crossed in the traditional Eltharian manner. Her silver hair, now mostly recovered from the injury, shone in the soft light. She was wearing a simple, flowing robe that seemed to blend into the environment around her. Adam noticed that her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were still watchful, as if measuring him, waiting for him to speak. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Adam began, his voice tentative but sincere, about how my actions weren't just about saving your life. They were about your honor, your culture. Lyanna turned to face him, her eyes steady. "And what have you learned?" she asked, her voice soft but firm, as if testing him. Adam hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I've learned that healing is not just about fixing the body. It's about understanding the whole person, their history, their beliefs, their connection to the world around them. And I've realized that I can't just treat you like a patient. I have to see you as an individual, as a person with values and traditions that go beyond what I know." Lyanna nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, finally, she spoke again. "You are beginning to understand," she said quietly. "But understanding is not enough. Respect is the key. To respect us is to honor us, not just as individuals, but as a people. It's in the way we live, the way we interact with each other and the world. To heal, you must first learn to respect." Adam took in her words, letting them sink in. Respect. It seemed simple, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized how complex it truly was. Respect wasn't just about following instructions or learning facts. It was about changing his perspective, seeing the world through someone else's eyes. "I want to learn," Adam said, his voice firm. "I want to respect your people, your traditions, but I don't know where to start." Lyanna looked at him thoughtfully. "You've already started, Dr. Pierce. By acknowledging that you don't know everything, by being willing to learn, you have already shown more respect than most would." Adam was surprised by her words. He had expected her to challenge him more, to push him harder, but instead, there was something else in her tone, a quiet approval. "Thank you," he said softly. "I'm still not sure if I fully understand, but I'm willing to keep trying." Lyanna smiled slightly, her eyes softening. "That is all we ask. A willingness to understand, to grow, and to honor the things we hold dear." The conversation shifted after that, moving to lighter topics as the two of them sat in the garden, sharing stories of their respective worlds. Adam told Lyanna about Earth, about his work as a medic, and the strange alien creatures he had encountered over the years. Lyanna, in turn, spoke of her people's history, their connection to the stars, and the ancient rituals that had shaped their culture for millennia. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the garden, Adam felt a sense of peace settle over him. The weight of the situation wasn't gone, but he felt like he was finally beginning to see a path forward. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he felt like he had a real understanding of what he was working toward. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments like this, moments of learning and reflection. Adam spent more time with Lyanna, asking questions, listening, and observing. He continued to study Altherian culture, trying to piece together the puzzle of their ways. He learned about their music, their art, their philosophy, things he had never even considered before. And through it all, he kept his promise to her, to learn, to respect, and to honor. One evening, as Adam sat in the garden, watching the stars begin to twinkle overhead, Lyanna joined him again. This time, she brought something with her, a small, intricately carved box. She held it out to him, her expression serious. "This is a symbol of our gratitude," Lyanna said quietly. "For your respect, for your willingness to learn. It is a gift, not just from me, but from my people." Adam took the box carefully, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and humility. He opened it slowly, revealing a small glowing stone, similar to the one he had used in the healing process. But this one was different. It pulsed with a softer, steadier light. "Thank you," Adam said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I deserve this, but I will cherish it." Lyanna nodded. "It is a sign of your progress, Dr. Pierce, a sign that you are walking the path of respect and understanding." Adam held the stone in his hand, feeling its warmth spread through his fingers. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. He had taken a step forward, both as a healer and as someone who had learned to see beyond himself. The days had grown longer since Adam's promise to learn about the Eltharian people, and the healing process, both physical and emotional, was well underway. Lyanna had fully recovered, her wound now a distant memory. Yet it wasn't just the scar that had healed. There was something deeper within her that had changed. She was no longer the distant, guarded individual that Adam had first encountered. There was a new sense of trust in her eyes when she looked at him, a trust that Adam had worked hard to earn. Adam had kept his promise. He had learned more about Eltharian culture than he could have imagined, each lesson more enlightening than the last, and in turn, he had gained a new perspective on his own life and the role he played in the universe. He had seen beyond his own limited view of healing, learning that it wasn't just about fixing a body. It was about understanding, respecting, and connecting with the person in front of you. But now, a new chapter awaited. It wasn't just about him and Lyanna anymore. It was about what came next. Adam knew the journey he had started wasn't over, and it would require more than just one person's efforts. There were bigger things at play now, things that he could only begin to grasp. One afternoon, as Adam sat in the garden, Lyanna approached him, her silver hair glowing in the sunlight. She was different now, more at ease, but there was still an air of determination about her. Adam could sense that something important was about to happen. "Dr. Pierce," Lyanna began, her voice steady but filled with purpose. "You have done much for me, for my people. You have earned our trust. But there is still more for you to do." Adam looked up, sensing the gravity in her tone. "What do you mean?" Lyanna stepped closer, her expression serious. "The healing you performed on me was just the beginning. You have shown great respect for our culture, but there are others in my people who still don't understand why we have chosen to trust you. There are still many who believe that humans, no matter how well-intentioned, cannot be trusted with our most sacred traditions." Adam felt a wave of unease wash over him. He had worked so hard to prove himself to Lyanna, to her people, but it seemed that his work was far from finished. "What can I do?" Adam asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. "How can I gain their trust?" Lyanna's gaze softened, but there was still a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. "There is a council, a gathering of the most respected members of my people. They will decide whether we can continue to work with you, whether we can trust you. But first, you must face them." Adam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The idea of standing before an entire council of Eltharian leaders, some of whom might still view him as an outsider, made him uneasy. But he knew that this was a part of the process, something he had to face if he truly wanted to be accepted. "Where do I begin?" Adam asked, his voice quiet. Lyanna's expression remained firm. "You will speak to them directly, face to face. You will tell them your story, the truth of who you are, why you came to us, and why you want to continue your journey with us. You must show them your sincerity, your respect, and your commitment to our ways. Only then will they consider your place among us." Adam nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. It was no longer just about healing Lyanna or learning Eltharian customs. It was about proving that he was worthy of their trust on a larger scale, and that was no small task. The day of the council arrived quickly, and Adam found himself standing in a large, circular chamber. The walls were adorned with intricate symbols and patterns that Adam had seen throughout the Eltharian spaces. The air in the room was thick with an energy he couldn't fully explain, but it felt like the weight of centuries was in this place. Lyanna stood beside him, her presence a calming force. The council was composed of 6 Eltharians, all of them wearing flowing robes and intricate jewelry that marked their status among their people. Their eyes glowed with an inner light, and their gaze seemed to pierce through Adam as they took their seats at the large, circular table. He stood tall, his back straight, and his hands clenched at his sides. He had prepared himself for this moment, but now that it was here, a rush of nerves flooded through him. Still, He knew that this was the only way forward. Dr. Pierce, the elder of the council, spoke, his voice rich and deep, carrying the weight of authority. You stand before us, not just as a healer, but as someone who has gained the trust of one of our own. You have treated Lyanna with respect, and you have made a promise to honor our ways. But promises are not enough. We must know why we should trust you. Adam took a deep breath, his mind clearing as he focused on his words. He had never been good at speaking in front of large groups, but he knew this was important. This was his chance to prove that he was worthy of the trust that Lyanna had given him. I came to your world by chance. Adam began, his voice strong but sincere. I didn't know your ways, your culture, or your beliefs. But from the moment I met Lyanna, I knew that I had to understand them. I didn't just want to heal her body. I wanted to heal her spirit, to understand the deeper connection that binds you all. And since that moment, I've worked to learn, to listen, to respect everything that makes you who you are. The council listened in silence, their expressions unreadable. Adam continued, speaking from his heart. I don't expect you to trust me just because I say these words. I know that trust is something that is earned, not given freely. But I am willing to work for it, to show you that I am committed to learning, to understanding, and to respecting your people and your ways. There was a long silence after he finished. The council members exchanged glances, as if weighing his words. Finally, the elder spoke again. Your words are sincere, Dr. Pierce, and your actions have shown us that you are worthy of trust. Adam felt a wave of relief wash over him, though he knew the council's decision wasn't final. But for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. The elder nodded, his expression softening. We'll give you a chance. But remember, trust is a journey, not a destination. Continue to show us that you are worthy of it. Adam bowed his head in gratitude. I will, I promise. Lyanna smiled beside him, her eyes filled with quiet pride. You've taken another step forward, Dr. Pierce. Adam knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more lessons to learn, but for the first time, he felt like he was truly walking this path with the Altharians. And no matter what the future held, he was ready.